There's a moment during every family game night when Monopoly stops being a game and turns into something closer to therapy. Somebody starts taking rent a little too personally. Someone insists they forgot to collect $200 for passing go. That was exactly what was happening at Mama's house a few months back. She'd made her lemon pound cake. My sister Destiny was laughing so hard she nearly knocked over the community chess cards, and my nephew kept trying to buy Boardwalk before anyone even owned it. Then Trey, Destiny's husband, walked in. You heard him before you saw him. The little electronic chirp of his brand new SUV locking behind him in the driveway, still wearing paper plates. When he came through the door, the first thing I noticed wasn't the car. It was the watch, the kind that catches the light from across the room. He looked successful. Actually, he looked expensive. About 5 minutes later, Uncle Earl came in carrying a grocery bag of homemade popcorn. Same faded flannel he probably owned for a decade. Same worn boots. Same old pickup at the curb. If you didn't know him, you'd guess life had been hard on Earl. He never looked wealthy. He looked comfortable. There's a difference. Earl has a habit I've loved since I was a kid. Every receipt goes in his shirt pocket. Every coupon gets folded exactly twice. Once I teased him about clipping a coupon that saved 17 cents. He just smiled.
17 cents doesn't make anybody rich, but wasting 17 cents keeps plenty of people poor.
I rolled my eyes at the time. I think about that sentence almost every week now. Halfway through the game, Mama cut the cake and handed Earl the smallest slice, without even thinking about it. Not because she loved him less, because she knew he'd be perfectly happy with less. Nobody offered Trey the small slice. Nobody ever does. It lasted 3 seconds and nobody noticed except me. And it hit me. We don't just judge people by how they look. We quietly organize our generosity around it. Who needs help? Who should pay? Who probably has money? Most of us make those calls without realizing we're making them at all. And sometimes we're completely wrong. I didn't figure that out because anyone told me. I found out by accident. A few days after game night, I was helping Destiny fix something on her laptop while she took a call in the kitchen. A browser tab was still open. I wasn't snooping, I was just trying to close it. And there it was, a collections notice. Trey's name, past due. I closed the window and never mentioned it. Everybody has seasons. But it made me think. A few days after that, I stopped by Earl's place to return a dish. We were sitting on his porch when he said, casual as talking about the weather,
I moved a little more into my index fund yesterday.
I laughed. A little more? He just shrugged.
Enough.
No numbers, no performance, just enough. It wasn't until later I realized his little more was probably more than most families save in years, and that's exactly how he wanted it. There's a name for what Trey is in personal finance circles, a Henry. High earner, not rich yet. Which is really just a polite way of saying, you make good money, but your money never gets to stay. Once you start looking successful, it gets surprisingly expensive to keep up the appearance. A nice watch becomes discipline. A leased SUV becomes success. But those things don't prove wealth. They only prove spending. Sometimes they prove debt. I asked Earl once why he still drove that rattling old truck. No touchscreen, no backup camera, nothing. I figured he'd say he was just stubborn. Instead, he got quiet.
My daddy lost everything twice. The first time because he didn't have enough money. The second time because everyone thought he did.
When people think you've got money, he told me, they start making plans for it. Earl grew up in a family where money vanished almost as fast as it arrived. Relatives needing help, friends with emergencies, investments that sounded too good to pass up. So before he turned 30, he made himself a promise.
I never want my lifestyle to grow faster than my freedom.
Not the biggest house, not the nicest truck, not even rich, just free. And once freedom is the actual goal, a lot of expensive decisions stop looking attractive. Trey grew up with the opposite lesson. His dad worked 2 jobs, bills stacked on the counter, panic every time something broke. Money wasn't just scarce in that house, it was embarrassing. So Trey promised himself that nobody would ever look at him and assume he was struggling. I get that. I think a lot of us do. Wanting to feel safe is human. The problem is that safety and status wear the same clothes. From the outside, they look identical. Inside, one is built on assets and the other is built on appearances. Here's where the math gets simple. Picture two families. Same income, same neighborhood. Family A leases the shiny 3-row SUV, leather, panoramic roof, the newest tech. Between payment, insurance, and premium fuel, they're spending close to $900 a month. Family B drives a reliable used sedan nobody turns to admire in a parking lot. Their transportation costs about $150 a month. The difference is $750 every single month. Here's the part people rarely calculate. If Family B quietly invests that gap into a low-cost index fund, raise after raise, bonus after bonus, after 25 years, that boring decision grows into well over $500,000. Not because they earned more, not because they were smarter, because they chose invisible wealth over visible wealth. One family bought admiration that lasted 30 seconds at a red light. The other bought options. And options are what freedom actually looks like. Nobody stays impressed for long either. Think about the last expensive car you saw. Can you remember who was driving it? The designer bag someone carried into the office last week? Gone from everyone's memory by the next morning. We spend years paying for things other people forget before the day is over. That's a terrible return on investment. And the visibility tax isn't just financial, it's social. Trey's cousin has asked him for just a small loan 3 separate times. An old college friend suddenly remembered his number the week he found crypto. A coworker wanted him to invest in a restaurant. Nobody asks Earl for financial advice unless they actually want advice. Nobody pressures him into anything. Nobody assumes he's covering dinner. Which is funny, because if anyone at that table could have written a check without blinking, it was Earl. So what do you actually do with this? I don't think the answer is pretending to be poor or feeling guilty over every nice thing you buy. Life is meant to be enjoyed. But maybe, before a major purchase, ask yourself one question. Who is this really for? Is it making your life genuinely better, or is it managing someone else's opinion of you? One creates value, the other creates pressure. Here's a habit I've borrowed from Earl. Whenever my income goes up, I try hard not to let my lifestyle climb at the same speed. Not out of denial, but because I want my freedom to grow faster than my expenses. Every raise creates a gap. Protect the gap. That's where wealth actually begins. Not with 6 figures, not with the market, not with luck. With the gap. The money that quietly stays yours. And maybe keep one more thing private. Your finances. Not because money should be secret, but because privacy creates leverage. The dealer negotiates differently when he thinks you have limits. The contractor prices differently when he assumes you're careful. You don't owe anyone a performance. When Monopoly wrapped up that night, Mama covered the leftover cake. Destiny stacked the money back in the box, and my nephew was still insisting he'd actually won. Trey went out to check on his SUV. Earl quietly folded the board the same careful way he always does. Watching them, it hit me. Nobody at that table knew which one of those 2 men could stop working tomorrow if he wanted to. Wealth doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it parks an old pickup at the curb. Sometimes it asks for the senior discount it doesn't even need. Not to pretend, but because it has nothing left to prove. Real wealth isn't loud. It isn't measured by watches or leased SUVs or vacation photos. It's waking up on a Monday, knowing your decisions belong to you. That's the kind of wealth nobody can see. And maybe that's exactly why it lasts. Maybe this made you look at your own family table a little differently now. We don't chase the appearance of wealth here. We build the kind that quietly changes your life.